Welcome, everyone. I'm Will Wilson. I lead the Galway Plus sports entertainment platform for Galway Holdings. For those of you who don't know, Galway is a diversified financial services platform, three main verticals: a retail insurance vertical, a wholesale insurance vertical, and a wealth management vertical. The major brands being Epic, GenCap, and MAI. Welcome to our Arena series, our webinar series, where we look to lean into interesting topics around the sports and entertainment industry. And today we have a really interesting topic and a great speaker in Stephen Crystal, who's the founder and CEO of SCCG Management. He's an industry veteran in the gaming and gambling industry, has lots of incredible insights, and is going to take us through the topic today of the convergence of sports, entertainment, and gambling, and the unlocking of new revenue streams in this particular category. So super interesting, obviously very timely in this country and around the world for that matter. Stephen has a 20-minute roughly presentation, and then we'll be happy to field some questions on the back end for those who have them. The way that works is that you need to post them in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and then I'll get those, and then I'll deliver those questions to Stephen, and he'll answer them, as we go until we reach time. So with that, Stephen, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Patrick. And thank you, Galway, for sponsoring this great webinar series. As I look back at a 35-year career in the gambling industry, I can remember the day standing in a cornfield in Omaha, Nebraska, with an Indian tribe that had just put slot machines into their bingo hall. I had to literally walk through the cornfield, and I couldn't imagine back then, that was in the early 90s, I couldn't imagine back then a scenario where brick and mortar casinos, gambling as we called it, would one day become synonymous and converge with sports and entertainment in the way that it has in our current digital world. To see that convergence, to see companies like ESPN, Barstool, to see leagues and teams sponsoring sports betting companies or vice versa, to see UFC sponsoring a crash game that would go on to make billions of dollars in the online gambling world, to see that convergence between athletes and influencers and our kind of 24/7, 365 content on demand world. We want what we want when we want it. To see that include gambling, which started out in that cornfield, is just an amazing transformation. And what we're going to discuss today is a little bit, some examples of that transformation and some opportunities for the future to take non-endemic brands and leverage them for new revenue streams in the gambling world. Again, that journey, 1990 to 2025, if you went into a brick and mortar casino, I remember in the 2000s or the 1990s, you might see a Sex and the City slot machine. You might see a 007 slot machine. You might see a branded table game. That might be the extent to which the entertainment world or the sports world, for that matter, might find its way into a sports book or a brick and mortar sports book or a casino floor, very rudimentary. It was all about something that was a little bit taboo, but slowly gaining traction. Now we have brick and mortar casinos in 42 states and some form of gaming in most states, with a couple, two, three exceptions. But to see that fast forward to 2025, when we have 94% of all wagers, whether they be online casino or sports book, 94% being taken on a mobile device. We have game shows, some classic game shows being staffed with modern day celebrities and influencers and being streamed into people's smartphone devices real time. To see that transformation has really led the way for the advent of non-endemic brands being able to access the regulated gambling world. So what does it mean to say that gambling equals entertainment? Well, obviously, being able to take games that can be visited on a casino floor and have them at your disposal 24/7, being able to use celebrities and being able to use influencers to bring these games to life. What it's doing really is growing a new class of enthusiasts for the gambling industry. We're being able to reach a new generation of people who otherwise would have no connection to a traditional slot machine, something that they might view as a rigged device, a mathematically rigged device that would be otherwise a waste of their investment. To be able to bring that to life in the form of entertainment, where celebrities that they identify and influencers that they identify are showing them how exciting it could be to interact with this content. This has really transformed the gambling industry. We went from the traditional blue-haired lady who would sit, that would be your grandma, my grandma, that would be the folks sitting by the slot machine. Well, they're getting older and they're moving on to different pastures. And now we have to think about how to make brick and mortar casinos relevant and how to continue that entertainment experience for when people are not in a brick and mortar establishment. How do we create that 360-degree experience? And we do that using a smartphone device. We do that using more interactive content like live casino. I mean, you literally have the ability to sit in your living room with your smartphone and select a specific slot machine in a specific casino somewhere in America. You literally have the ability to play that slot machine remotely. Think about the power of that. Think about the power of being able to take your streamed, your content, your sports content, whether it's through Fubo or whether it's through some of the other streaming sites, and to be able to look at live sports action where the latency is getting less and less and be able to bet real time as the action unfolds. Think about how interactive that is. Think about how elevated that entertainment experience is. Um, so we think about the world of celebrity and influencers. I think of some examples. What better influencer to point to than Jake Paul and his partnership with Better? He basically put that sports app on the map with his tens of millions of followers. He's created a whole new version of prize fighting, taking that influencer status and creating something that's more interactive, more watchable, more viewers, creating more relevance for the sport. You can look at something like a classic comedian and movie star like Kevin Hart and his partnership with DraftKings. You can look at, did you ever think Disney? Disney, the brand most associated with our childhood memories, with the purity of childhood being associated with sports betting through ESPN Bet and their partnership with Penn Gaming. We are seeing sports stars, teams, and particularly influencers and celebrities. Let's use Michael Jordan and his ownership in DraftKings, or others who have come and taken major positions in sports betting sites. That would have been unheard of 10, 15 years ago. Now it's completely acceptable to see non-endemic brands and celebrities associated at the highest levels in entertainment and sports be associated with gambling apps and gambling companies who are promoting that form of entertainment. I used as an example a partnership that we have. Francine Marin goes by Lady Luck HQ. During COVID, she had sold a software company, a CRM company in the automotive business, and she took some of her winnings and decided to become a high-end slot player, high-limit slot player in the casino. The casinos would allow her to film herself winning jackpots. She would use her own money. That was a big factor. Well, over 10 years, or I should say a little less than that, she's been able to grow an audience through the various social media channels, whether it's TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. She now creates over 1 billion impressions a month of people who simply watch her play physical slots or online slots and stream it on a regular basis. She's telling them about how to win the jackpot, how to get to certain features that most people don't get to because they don't have the same bankroll. She's making it fun and exciting. She's introducing slot play to a new generation. And this was just a just a businesswoman who decided to apply her talents to a different vertical. And now the most sought after person associated with gambling has become herself an entertainer who can create monetization by bringing new customers into the fold. This is an example of the importance of creating a brand. It used to be the brands were IGT and Bally's. The brands were Aristocrat, the people who made the games. And now the brands are influencers like Lady Luck, like, like Mr. Slots. I could go down the list. There are dozens. And these are the folks that have loyal audiences, and they liked to see how the gambling could be made fun as a form of entertainment. We had the pleasure at the arena event in Cabo to feature another of our brands, Boo-Ray, which is a 400-year-old card game, like spades, like hearts, like some of these trick games that was played. It was brought over by France. It came to New Orleans. It was adopted by African American culture and by sports celebrities and entertainers alike. Some of the most famous people we know, people like Mark Wahlberg and Kendrick Perkins. You'll see him on ESPN, but folks who came together around a game that provided a social experience as well as a gambling experience, in many cases, a very high stakes gambling experience. And we had the pleasure of taking that brand and bringing it to the digital world, bringing it into brick and mortar casino, creating everything from music to clothing lines to a culture around celebrity, around competition, around high stakes gamble. And this is something that's very exciting to do, to take a brand, again, associated historically, and meld the worlds of sports, entertainment, and gambling in one brand. It's a great example. Another example that we've had a lot of fun with at SCCG is taking a sports restaurant and really creating something with the owners of that brand on steroids. So it brings the experience of watching a sporting event at the arena or at the stadium. It brings it to a restaurant bar setting in a big box, and it adds technology and fan engagement to create an experience that literally makes you feel like you're at the venue watching the live sporting event. We're now rolling this out to commercial and Indian casinos throughout the United States to elevate the sportsbook experience, to add great food, great social environment, and use technology to create that fan engagement and those additional revenue streams. So now you're selling chicken wings, you're selling beer, you're selling bets, in essence. And the money is pretty significant. So that's a great example of taking a non-endemic brand and marrying it with technology to the gambling industry in a legal, regulated way and creating new revenue streams. If you look at our ecosystem, we've had really the joy of building an ecosystem of over 200 brands. Some of them are technology and fan engagement oriented. Some of them are actual combat sports, which seems to meld very well with the gamification and gambling industry. Some of them are leagues and teams like Hendrick Motorsports, Race Team Alliance, Racing America, the Cincinnati Bengals, Major League Rugby, American Cornhole, which was a hot betting market during COVID. The only better was ping pong. That was the number one betting market in Colorado. Colorado was one of the first states to legalize sports betting. It was ping pong, but second was a cornhole. And mostly because they could hold events during COVID and platforms and technology. And so basically, we look at that ecosystem and we look at how others have leveraged the same dynamic between technology and media. Take Amazon and the partnership with DraftKings for Monday Night Football. Take DAZN and their media streaming of boxing events and betting. Take Fanatics and leveraging merch with sports bets. Take UFC and TKO, in essence, creating branded sports products. Take Aviator, who's now sponsoring UFC, who created the most singularly the most successful gambling game called a crash game in the history of gambling, generating over $1 billion in revenue in its first year of release. So for us, we look at investing in the IP. So whether it's Lady Luck HQ, it's Boo-Ray, it's Tom's Watch Bar, whether it's an endemic brand in gambling or a non-endemic brand, which all of these are, and we're leveraging revenue streams now that exist, dozens of different types of regulated revenue streams in the gambling industry. I would argue that you could take any influencer brand, any entertainment brand, any sports brand, and you can meld it as entertainment with gambling in a regulated, legal, compliant way to create new revenue streams. And a lot of our days are spent dealing with brands that don't even come from the gambling industry to explore ways that they can interact with their user bases, with their fan bases, to give them something they want. People want that content on demand, 24/7, 365, and gambling and the opportunities of gamification are part of that mix as much as any other form of entertainment. A little bit more about SCCG. We're now 35 years. I guess the years are going faster than the updates in the presentation. We're in 6 continents. We touch 11 country offices and over 100 countries. The important thing to say here is that gambling is now a global business touching most of the world in a regulated, compliant way. And so anything we talk about with respect to a USA focus applies equally to Africa, which is a mobile-first environment, and a lot of our celebrities and athletes have as much appeal in Africa as they do in America. Emerging markets in South America, in Europe, in Asia. Look at Asia, 60% of our population, world's population between 18 and 30 is in Asia. 60% of the world's population between 18 and 30 is in Asia. So any strategy that ignores Asia ignores it at its peril. And then we look at, in essence, the broad categories of the types of tech, data, and innovation that enables this type of cross-selling or convergence between gambling, sports, and entertainment. We look at AI, which is now part of every platform and technology and product. We look at mobile 5G, which is now universal. We look at crypto and blockchain, which is fast becoming the preferred way to transact. And we look at compliance and RegTech as the ability to make sure we can do these things in a compliant, safe, and legal way. And then we talk about the fact that we still have emerging markets in the world. And so at any given time, I will find myself in Brazil, one of the more recent markets for expansion, the 6th largest economy in the world. Thailand, which is opening up to casinos as the next Macau in the near future. Belize, that's not an emerging market per se. It's a very small island that people go to for spearfishing, but we're excited to be building a casino there with Marriott. So who knows what's possible there? It's definitely one of the emerging economies in the Caribbean for gambling. And Nigeria, I use that as an example because we have our head office for Africa there. A mobile first, you'd be surprised at the sophistication. The transactions are micro, but the sophistication and the technology and the product offering are very impressive. Sometimes we take innovation first to Africa, which is an amazing concept that we could innovate and start that innovation in Africa before we would start it in America. I guess just in summary, it's been great to see the progression. Um, we've gone from that kind of cornfield to this 24/7, 365, 360-degree experience that connects your gambling experience both in brick and mortar and digital, and it interfaces with celebrity and influencers, athletes and teams and leagues. It's just such a robust ecosystem that we've been challenged with trying to find ways to create opportunities for non-endemic brands, and that's really the focus that brought me to the partnership with Galway and this presentation. So with that, I'll kind of wrap up the presentation part and see what questions we have.
Stephen, that's great. A lot to dive in there, for sure. And again, just to remind folks, if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A function at the bottom. But just kind of kick things off, what lessons do you think sports organizations or teams can learn from the gaming industry about audience engagement? And then kind of related to that, as a follow-up, like who's doing it well? Like if there's someone to kind of emulate who's really figured out how to connect the dots between their fans, their product and gaming and using experiences from gaming, who's doing it well?
Excellent question, Will. During COVID, when I had the pleasure of rolling out sports betting for Betfred, a major bookmaker in the UK, they taught me a lot about, because they've had sports betting there a lot longer than we have, but they taught me a lot about how digital and brick and mortar sports betting should interact with sports teams and leagues. They gave me a budget of 100 million, which is not a small budget, and they told me to travel around America, meet with the teams and leagues, and give them advice on how to spend it. So that gave me a nice vantage point. I was disappointed, frankly, at the level of sophistication because a lot of the teams were really wed to the old school of selling, advertising space. It was really limited to signage. They weren't yet adept at using fan engagement apps. They were scared of it. They were worried about diluting the fan experience in any way. And so I would say that's the lesson I learned, how far behind we were. I then had some bright spots like Hendrick Motorsports, which was by no means, it's a very conservative organization. Their lead sponsor was Liberty University. Okay. But they were open to using social gamification as a way to reach a new demographic for race fans. So I would say there were bright spots. And now, many years later, as teams have matured in their relationship with the DraftKings and the FanDuels and the Caesars and MGMs, they've come a long way at leveraging fan engagement, using the tech from the gambling industry to create opportunities and revenue streams. So I think they've come up the learning curve super fast. And I think it's a good thing because I think the old ways have to give way to the new ways.
Kind of, leaning into that a little bit on the tech side with AI. I mean, everyone's talking about AI every day on multiple fronts. How is that what is its impact on the gambling industry in general? Like what major change do you see happening because of AI?
I would say some of the best use cases for AI are in the gambling industry because what is required with AI is taking lots of data, huge amounts of data, and creating actionable opportunities for operators of that data or consumers of that data. So when you look at everything from giving bettors more information that they can use to make informed decisions on how to place bets, to creating products that are responsive real time to the way a customer wants to consume a product, whether it's a game session, whether it's the way they want to be incentivized to spend more time at an event or an activity, taking the data, creating an actionable result that operators can then use that data to more personalize the experience is what the gambling industry is all about today. We want that data. We want to personalize the experience. We want to make offers and engagement that are suited for the customer. This is AI driven 100%.
You mentioned some of your clients, you have some teams and you have some leagues. I think of a league like I believe you had the rugby league, the sort of
Right,
startup rugby league in the States, which is really starting from scratch,
right.
right? Are they able to be more, you know, I don't know, the right phrases, entrepreneurial, take more risk than let's say like the NFL or someone like that, and kind of set the system up properly out of the blocks?
100%. Obviously, Will, if you look at the NFL, what will move the needle for the NFL is an expansion to Germany or expansion to a new continent. Um, Not so much. Now, they ended up trading their data rights to ownership of the company that produces the data and sports lines for NFL betting. People don't realize, but the NFL is an owner of the company they sold the data rights to.
Who is that? Who did they sell to?
Sold it to Genius,
Okay.
Genius Sports. Um, so when you see that, yes, that's how they play. But for like for the Major League Rugby, or we did AUDL, which is a frisbee football, or we've done fly golf, which is frisbee golf. We've done dozens of emerging and niche sports. When you talk about content on demand, will and you talk about local communities of avid followers, they can find a niche. There's now a way to stream that content. There's a way to bet on that content. There's a way to gamify that content. There's a look at the Surf League. They ended up having all of these tools, and they sold recently. So
Mhm.
I would say that for emerging leagues, it's even more exciting using these technologies because they can help you find that absolutely necessary revenue stream while you're building up a seasoning for that league to be successful.
You kind of wrapped up the presentation a little bit with the sort of the global map, right? And you'd mentioned that you guys have offices all over. You talked about North Africa. You talked about Brazil, going down there, Belize. What about, when you think about a region in the world that is incredibly active right now in sports and entertainment, it's MENA, obviously North Africa and the Middle East. All the sovereign wealth funds, everything that's happening in that part of the world. Everyone and their uncles moving in, agencies are going there. Someone had explained to you, it might have been you, that there is an avenue for gambling to be legal in these areas. What's sort of the status on that as that area really starts to grow in a sports entertainment aspect?
Look, great question, and we did talk a little bit about it, I recall. But look, it's MENA, obviously, is Middle East and North Africa. What we're talking about initially is the Emirates, where um, Wynn and MGM are building casinos. So they're going to start with some casino resorts. They found a way to do it so that it is not violative of Sharia law. Obviously, the part of the world, and I've always believed in the gambling industry where there's a will, there's a way. So they have found their way. And they are issuing licenses by the dozens and dozens and dozens to some of the most respected companies in the world to offer up their brick and mortar gaming technology and digital gaming technology, whether it's in lottery or online gaming or sports. I get a call every week from someone who's either building a major sportsbook product or a casino. So they have found a way, emirate by emirate, to approve different types of gambling under different regulatory regimes. Obviously, they want to be a destination market, and they are. They have the money to do whatever they want. This is the biggest distinguishing factor. We have a situation where one day they'll be the outright owners, probably of UFC. They'll be the outright owners of PGA without getting into all the politics. Essentially, they're the owners. And soon, who knows? I mean, it would be hard to think NFL, which started out, You know that the original owners of NFL were bookies, illegal bookies, who ran markets, and they also owned the football team.
I didn't know that.
That is the absolute truth. They've written books about it. And it's the truth. So I guess what I'm saying is that you can't ignore MENA because the resources are there. They've already done the convergence of entertainment and sports using their pocketbook, and now they're adding gambling.
Right.
So I think you're looking at the future behemoth market in the world, and it's not Macau, and it's not Las Vegas, and it's probably MENA.
That's fascinating. So I just have a couple more questions here. And again, just a reminder, if you have one, please drop it in the chat. Um, One other question I have is, how do you see the lines between traditional sports, esports, and gambling continuing to kind of blur over the next few years?
Look, I was an early investor in esports. We put through ourselves and through our partners, close to 70 million to work. We invested in media companies, we invested in teams and organizations, we invested in sports betting technology and data around esports betting. During COVID, esports betting had a spike, as you would imagine, because those contests could occur irrespective of COVID regulations. I would say now the movement in esports is the melding of entertainment and sports. So the big investment has gone to companies that are marrying esports as competition with celebrity and entertainment and lifestyle. And so that, because a lot of the other stuff has run its course. You had team organizations that traded up to hundreds of millions of dollars and then went to near zero
Hmm.
as investments. You had sports betting companies that spiked and then went down. But I would say that the next iteration is the same convergence we're talking about here between sports entertainers, sports celebrities, entertainers, and competition using video game as the content.
Interesting. So then I guess kind of bringing it back to our geography a little bit, and we think about the role of partnerships that are happening between leagues and betting companies, which, as pointed out, 10 years ago would have been impossible. I mean, I can tell you anecdotally, way back when the NFL owned a league in Europe, and I was running a team in Scotland, I tried to do a deal with Victor Chandler, which was a bookie
Yeah,
in
I
the
know Victor. He's an interesting guy.
with one of our properties on the team, and I was told I couldn't do it. This was in, the let's call it the early 2000s. Obviously, fast forward many years, that's obviously not an issue anymore. And so we think about these partnerships between leagues, betting companies, gaming platforms. How do they, what role are they playing in creating new revenue streams?
E- Excellent, Will. And I will say it's gone through a cycle. Let's take the UK. Um, they had a period of time where they would sell any real estate on a player's jersey. Front of shirt, of course, was worth 10 to 20 million a season.
Yeah.
Front of shirt. A sleeve could be 5 million for a sleeve, you know. But the European regulators have become more, let's say, maternalistic or paternalistic, and they're regulating more tightly. Same thing happened in Brazil. They allowed people to buy any type of real estate with a sports team, jersey, field, signage, and then they felt it was being seen by too many young fans and sending the wrong message. And they pulled back. So I guess what I would say to you is in the US, we tend to be less restrictive than the rest of the world because our history is more self-regulation. We do have regulation, but we tend to trust our companies to be good corporate citizens. We're a little bit, let's say, more capitalistic that way. But if companies abuse that, that's when regulators step in. So I think so far the companies have done a pretty good job of balancing things like responsible gaming with promoting the activities they want to see people partake in, which is more betting.
Mhm.
But the minute that calculus goes the wrong way, I think we could see the U.S. become more regulated, even on issues surrounding how teams and sports betting or gaming companies advertise. But right now, some of the biggest sponsorships are still gaming companies and NFL arenas and teams, or NFL stadiums and NBA teams and baseball. I mean, it's still a big business for teams and leagues.
This is great. Listen, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add here as we wrap up?
No, just I think it's going to continue to be an area of evolution and innovation. I would just say we're always open to having any conversation with any particularly non-endemic brands, people who don't come from the gambling industry, who want to explore how that industry fits as a form of entertainment with their main business. So I would say we're open to those discussions anytime.
Listen, I really appreciate it. It's fascinating discussion, fascinating topic, and I appreciate your expertise.
Thank you, Will.
Thanks, everyone.